Imagine you just found the perfect new built home while searching for a new place. You speak to the agent and they tell you that this project is nearly finished and you can close in just a few months. It must be fake. So you can make an offer, review the sales contract, but then all of a sudden there's a speed bump. For some reason, they refuse to promise a closing date. You're probably wondering what gives. Why can't they provide one? They'll take your deposit but can't promise when they'll deliver the finished product? Well, the truth is that it's actually rare for a developer to agree to an exact closing date while the construction is still being completed. So before you make an offer, it's crucial to understand how closing dates work on new developments so you don't have your hopes and dreams crushed when the projected closing date comes and goes. Why won't developers guarantee a closing date? Are they all just indecisive or unreliable people who can't complete their work on time? Not exactly. Most developers will not guarantee a closing date in the contract because it presents too much risk if they can't deliver. Anyone with experience in construction will tell you how unpredictable that kind of business can be. There are many external factors that can slow down the project, including supply chain issues, labor shortages, building inspection approvals, and even general bureaucracy. The most successful developers frequently deal with delays that can cause them to readjust their closing dates. So unfortunately, there's almost no way to tell when the construction will be complete and you'll be able to move in. But developers still want to generate interest in the property. So they will often give their sales team an estimate of a reasonable completion timetable based on how the project is going, which they will use to market to buyers. But when it comes time to signing a legally binding contract, they will not guarantee a closing date unless they know for a fact that the project will be ready. Otherwise, they could get sued if they agree to a specific date but aren't able to deliver based on circumstances that are out of their control. So take what the listing agent says with a grain of salt when it comes to a closing date. More importantly, consult with your attorney when they review the contract. Many home shoppers assume that closing dates are set in stone, but there is a big difference between what's called time of the essence or a on or about closing date. A time of essence closing date means that the developer is responsible for delivering on that specific date. However, if the contract lists an on or about closing date, it means that it's a much more fluid situation. An on or about date is more of an approximation and can be adjusted by either party with a limited penalty. So if you see a time of essence closing date, you have a guarantee. But that's also why likely you won't see that kind of language in a sales contract for a new development. It can be extremely frustrating if you believe you put down a deposit on a perfect home and made all the arrangements to move, only to find out that the closing date is more of a loose suggestion than a commitment. I know from personal experience. I once bought a home in a new development that was 2.5 years behind schedule. We didn't have an out, so I was stuck, but it was an important lesson learned. So if you want to avoid mistakes that I made, there are a few ways you can protect yourself and get a better sense of when you may be able to close. One pro tip is to take a look at the developer's other projects. Do they have a history of wrapping up on time? Or do they have a track record of delays and disruptions? One common misconception is that big, well-known developers always close on time. This is not always the case. In fact, the larger and more complex a project is, the more likely is that difficulties may arise. Plus, many large developers already have enough existing business and may not feel the need to rush to accommodate new customers, opposed to a smaller company that may be more eager for your business. So don't assume that just because you're working with a big name, that means that they are more likely to deliver on time. Another pro tip is to take a hard look at the development and use common sense. If the project still just a pile of dirt, you may need to be more patient. But if the building is mostly complete and only needs a few cosmetic upgrades, you'll get a better sense of when it might realistically be finished. The third and most important pro tip, try to negotiate an outside date for the close date, especially if the project will be 18 months or more to close. An outside date is the furthest date out that the sale could close before you can get out of the contract. So if the sponsor can't deliver by that date, you can walk away and still get your deposit back. An outside date can be a lifesaver if there are unforeseen delays with the construction and you are seriously concerned about the project's future. Terms may not be negotiable on a contract, but you should nonetheless try. The worst that can happen is that the seller says no. Buying a home already is a big deal. Each home has its own nuances, even if they're right next to each other. It's even more confusing when you're buying in a new development, as there are specific differences like closing costs and other requirements. So be sure to follow this channel as we delve into this type of home.